And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
Business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Don Gosher.
how well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at PreneurMarketing.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Don Goucher here with Pete Williams, as usual.
Hey, buddy, how's
Pete?
things?
Pretty good, pretty good. In this show, folks, we have a bit of a... I don't know how to present this one, really. It's the story of Pete's arch nemesis. There's no other way to say it, really. Who's now your best buddy, Dave Jenyns.
Yeah, Dave. When I first heard about Dave, he was also selling the MCG, which obviously previous and long-term listeners to the show would know all about. That back in the early 2000s, I had a project where I sold Australia's version of Yankee Stadium. I was able to get a whole bunch of timber and crested carpet, which is very famous, from the MCG's members' dining room, and framed up as a series of memorabilia pieces and things like that. And Davey J at the time had the same idea and was doing something very similar. I was, as you'll hear in this story in the conversation today, I was lucky enough to kind of do it on a bit of a grander scale than Dave. But nonetheless, he started off as my arch nemesis, and subsequently we become best friends, and we both spoke at each other's weddings, and we are now best buds. So I thought it's about time, after 130 odd episodes, we should get him on the show, share his story of how he started, and obviously all the other projects he's been doing on his entrepreneurial journey as well.
Cool. So before we get to the main body of the show, what's been going on with you recently, Pete?
Oh, Easter. Easter's been, and then Anzac Day in Australia. So it's been a bit of a weird sort of week and a half with, a number of long weekends and short weeks and things like that. So it's been a bit chaotic, I can't even say the word, in Australia this week. But, it hasn't stopped us from getting a couple of blog posts out. Got a couple of new posts on the site over at PreneurMarketing.com. So if you haven't checked out the blog recently, make sure you do. We've got a couple of great essays on there. One is actually from the editor of ConversionXL.com, who I believe is one of the probably preeminent blogs on conversion rate optimization. And Tommy, being the editor there, kindly donated his services to write a guest essay on our site, which is all about what really matters for conversions and happy customers. So kind of taking it beyond just the CRO kind of look and talking about making sure you have happy customers. And it's a really good essay there. And also one which is worth bookmarking and putting into your swipe file is 10 guarantee templates you can swipe to instantly increase your conversion. So if you're writing some sales copy or thinking about how you should improve the conversions on your business, then definitely check out that essay, because it talks about how to use guarantees effectively. Because the thing is, you have to offer a guarantee legally anyway. So why not use it as part of your marketing and really scream it and make it a preeminent part of what you're doing? So that's what that essay is all about over at PreneurMarketing.com.
Cool. Did you manage to squeeze in any real world stuff as well, or did those public holidays and everything else get in the way of that?
Oh, it has made it a bit crazy, but one thing we are doing, I guess, sort of my focus for the next month or so, I think, will be in the telco world, is we're looking at re-engineering our entire sort of system and the SaaS stuff that we use. So I'm going to move away from SAP B1, which was a $60,000 or $70,000 investment about 6 or 7 years ago in the business.
Okay, can I just do kind of an alarm noise and go buzzword, SAP, SaaS, SAP,
CRM. Yeah, okay, good point.
CRM. So, what are you talking about?
So basically, with the telco business, obviously we have a sales pipe where we have to manage the sales as the leads come in and manage that through. We've obviously got the installation of the phone systems once we sell that solution to a client. We've got the ongoing support and maintenance of the client's phone system. So we've got a product called SAP B1, which is kind of one of the leading sort of all-encompassing software programs that sort of run a business like that and take care of all those things. And we put this in back sort of 2009, I think it would have been, at a cost of about $60,000 or $70,000 for the software and the setup. In the process now, we've kind of outgrown it and changed our business a little bit. So I'm in the hunt for the next couple of months to kind of re-engineer and re-look at how we're going to actually run that side of the business. So just literally went back to the drawing board this week and used or set up Nutshell, which is a really simple sales and lead management tool, a little very simple CRM software package, which is, $20 a month per user or something like that. So we've actually pulled the sales lead management out of SAP and putting into Nutshell, which if you are running a sales business, I highly recommend you check out Nutshell. It's just an online application, which is really cool. So set that up this week to get that running, and then now it's on to sort of bigger and better things in terms of looking at what we're going to do to actually run the whole business, whether it's Salesforce.com or maybe use Sugar or look at the new cloud-based version of SAP. It's going to be a big project no matter what it is. So that's kind of the next big to-do thing on my list, which is a little scary, but exciting as well.
Wow, huge. Okay, have you managed to get back on your reading, listening track?
Yeah, so got a book recommendation from Ryan Holiday, who I think everyone who, again, has listened to the show a few times would know. He's written a number of great books. One of his most recent ones was Growth Hacker Marketing, a sort of a Kindle version book, and his new book, The Obstacle in the Way, is out in a couple of weeks' time. So really excited to sort of check that one out in its final format. But he recommended a book called Hooked, a guide to building habit-forming products. And he described it as a book that kind of took off where his Growth Hacker Marketing book kind of finished. And it kind of goes through a whole bunch of stuff about, what it takes to grow a startup and build a business and make it something that's going to actually become a habit for your consumer. So, it's been interesting so far. I've only just sort of started to scratch the surface of the book, so I can't really give my take on it yet, but maybe in next week's show we can come back and I can give you some feedback on actually what I've learned from going through the book itself.
Sounds interesting. Certainly if Ryan recommends it as the thing that comes after the thing that he wrote, it's got to be worth a look.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, folks, so let's get into the main part of this show, which is a conversation between Pete and Dave Jenyns. Pete gave a bit of an introduction at the beginning, but there's so much more to this than just the story of how Pete and Dave got together in the first place, or didn't, as the case may be. It's a great little backstory, as Pete said, about the sale of the MCG. But there's lots and lots of other stuff in there, including a complete surprise for me about a project that Dave worked on. So listen out to that, and listen out for probably the most important thing, which is where Dave talks about taking action.
All right, Davey J, this is the great debate. Who had the idea of selling the MCG first?
I don't even know if I've heard your full story either. So I'll have to have a part two. I'll have to interview you for my podcast.
All right, let's do that.
And then you can interview me.
Awesome. So obviously you were selling MCG at the same time I was. We didn't know each other at the time. I think I knew of you. I think you knew of me, obviously, which we'll get to in the conversation. But it wasn't until probably 3, 4, 5 years later, maybe, that we actually kind of met and actually decided to be friends and not mortal enemies.
That's right, arch nemesis. I'm sure it was at an internet marketing conference or something like that near the exhibition centre. I think that's where.
And then we kind of cooked up there, and then a few months later we shared a car ride to Beechworth. Big country town in the middle of nowhere in Victoria for a 3-day, 4-day intensive marketing course, another conference, right. And we got stuck in the car for 3 hours or so and hit it off really well.
Realised, hey, you're all right.
There we go. And then we spoke at each other's weddings, so obviously the
rest is history.
Exactly. So I guess let's start to sort of tell your MCG story, because I think people kind of know dribs and drabs of mine because I've shared it on the show before in bits and pieces. But what's your selling the MCG story?
Yeah, well, always been interested in marketing. I think it started off, I created a product in a niche very early on, realised that you have to have a great marketing plan to actually get the message out there. So
stock market product?
Stock market, yep. And I think that was kind of just got me started reading a whole lot of self-development books and direct mail and sales letter copy, all that type of stuff. And one of the books that I came across, there was a marketer in Perth called Mal Emery, and he was actually, I think, good friends with Paul Hartunian or a client or something like that. And I had seen his name pop up a couple of times, heard the story, because it's one of those stories, the guy who sold the Brooklyn Bridge, that's gone round many times. So it was in the back of my mind. And then what was coming up was I was actually attending another conference. Well, there's a bit of a recurring theme here, up in Brisbane by a guy called Brad Sugars.
Yep.
And he had sent out the same book as you were reading, which is The 1 Minute Millionaire. And it told the story of Paul Hartunian in pretty good detail, along with a few other bits and pieces. And they were having a bit of a competition in the lead up to Brad's conference. They said, from this book, anyone who could take it and apply something from it and bring their stories as a result of reading the book would end up winning this prize.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so that was bouncing around in the back of my head. And then,
can you remember what the prize was?
Yeah, I got $1,000. I won it.
Ah, cool.
Yeah,
I kind of just cut.
Yes,
story,
that's right. So that was good. Everybody got up in front of the microphone and told their story, and everybody was just like, "That is an amazing idea." So, I mean, for people who don't know, the guy who sold the Brooklyn Bridge basically saw them doing the renovations on the Brooklyn Bridge and called up the people who were doing the wrecking and called them up and said, "Hey, can you deliver all the discarded wood to my place?" Wrote up a press release and chopped up the bits of wood and then said, Brooklyn man sells, New Jersey man sells Brooklyn Bridge for $24.95, and then got loads of media attention. So as two young aspiring entrepreneurs, that's a story that definitely piqued our interest. And for me, I was driving past the MCG and then saw that they were doing renovations and thought, hey, this is it. This is like the stars aligning. This is going to be awesome. And straight away went home and started acting on it. Did some research to find out who was doing the renovations, and got in touch with a company. It was not Wheel and the Wreckers first. I actually went to the people who were working with all the bricks and things like that. So my initial plan was to take bricks and mail them out, of all things. Clearly not the smartest tack in the box. I wasn't thinking about shipping or anything like that. But I went along and it was out in Essendon or something like that. And the guy was showing me around some of the bricks and things like that. And then I kind of told him what I was planning on doing. And he said, "Oh, you should contact Wheel and the Wreckers." He said, "They've got discarded carpet, wood, much more interesting stuff than just bricks."
What were they doing? What were their plans with the bricks? Were they going to just like sell them?
Recycle.
Just whatever. And not sell them as MCG bricks, just here are bricks.
Yep. So they were just cleaning off the concrete and stacking them up and then going to resell them as secondhand bricks. So I remember kind of ferreting through. I ended up buying some of those bricks. I've still got those bricks back at home, which I never did anything with.
You know, sort of paver at the back of the new house you just bought.
Yeah, that's right. I should. Well, I'm actually thinking some of the old stuff because I still got bits of the wood, the green wooden seating as well. Maybe making a bench seat or something like that. So I ended up, then he gave me the lead to go to Wheel and the Wreckers, which is kind of out, is it Port Melbourne?
So just behind the Williamstown Footy Club.
Yeah. So went out there and remember walking into this, they had a big warehouse that was kind of dusty and they had big rolls up of the carpet and they had a huge pile of the green wood. Now, initially I'd thought, the most valuable piece that stuck out in my mind, I thought was going to be the wood. So I ended up buying a whole bunch of the wood. We filled up the car, got a few rolls of the carpet as well. And at the time, they only charged, it was like grand and a half or something like that.
It was just crazy cheap.
Yeah. And then there was a big pile of carpet left. I there was still a lot of wood because, I mean, they had a heck of a load of wood. Ended up heading home, and just before I left, I said, "Oh, look," because I borrowed my dad's van, or my dad came with me, and we'd filled it up. And he said, "Oh, look, the carpet will be here tomorrow." He said, so I just said, well, earmark it for me and then I'll come back. So ended up being a couple of days, went back, and then he said, "Oh, look, someone came and picked up the rest of the carpet." And I said, "Oh, nuts." And then the dude goes, "But it's okay." The guy said that he was just going to use it to line his pool room floor with. I don't know if you remember saying that, or
possibly. I think I may have said something along those lines, just to kind of not let him kind of think, "Oh, hang on, we should do something our own." With the because obviously there was no carpet left. The guy said to me that some other guys bought some of the carpet and is going to do something with it. I'm like, right, screw it, I'm buying it all. So I again, quite cheap, a few more than a couple of grand. Cause obviously I bought a lot more than you, but still bought a chunk, and took it all. And then I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm not going to let him know what I'm going to do with it," because they had so much timber left and stuff like that. If they were really switched on, because again, they were planning on selling it similar to that brick stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, here's just recycled timber, just do your own decking, do whatever you want with it. And I'm like, if they actually realise the value of this and turn around saying, do your decking outside your house with MCG timber, 200, 300, 400 times markup they could have easily put on there and people would have paid it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to let these guys know because, I was thinking naively at the time that they might be savvy enough to do something.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is like they're in the demolition game. They're in the recycling game. They're not in the memorabilia game or the marketing game. And that's something kind of I didn't realise at the time. I bought it all because the guy said there was someone else doing something similar. I'm like, all right, I'm grabbing it.
Well, you moved quicker because I got it back to Dad's, wrote up the press release. I was all ready to go. And then I thought, but I can't mail the press release just before I go on this conference.
Just like a couple of days before you flew to Brisbane.
Yeah. So I'm going to be away because we were going on this road trip for a couple of weeks and then I had the week conference. So it's going to be 3 weeks. And I thought, I can't do it while I'm away because if it does blow up, I won't be there to take the calls or do anything. Yep. So I just thought, all right, we'll just leave it be until I got back. So we flew up, did the road trip, went to the Brad Sugars event. And that's where they had the competition and they got everybody to come up and tell their story. And I mentioned what I was planning to do with the carpet.
Yeah, so you'd already bought the carpet. I was ready to go. Here's a press release. When I get back from this conference, I'm going to apply all the great marketing stuff I've just learned and go to town with this. And they said, awesome idea. Here's $1,000 prize.
Yeah. And
very cool.
Someone in the crowd gone, that's you. Oh, really well done. So you must have done it almost straight away from when you got it.
I think my press release came out like 3 days after I bought it. So it would have been like, you bought it. 2 days later, I bought it. 3 or 4 days later, my press release went out, and then Herald Sun, Today Tonight, or not Channel 7 News, that kind of stuff.
And then, so I'm up there, and they said, that was you. You did congratulations type thing. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then later that day, I started getting, because before I left, I told 2 or 3 friends, or Remy and a few of the others, and then they called and they said, did you give the wood to anyone? And I was like, no, what do you mean? And they said, there's another guy almost the same as you, doing the same thing.
Look similar, same age.
That's right. And I remember at the time thinking, this has got to be the worst thing. This was my opportunity. You get once in a lifetime moment to shine, and I missed it because I'm up doing this conference. So I had to stew on it because that's right, going Pete Williams. And I think, I was up in Brisbane at the time, so I had to stew on it for a week before I even got home. So I got home and then had seen some of the media attention that you got, saw some of the different newspaper articles and things like that as well. And then I thought, look, I'm not going to not market it. I thought, well, I've still got all of this stuff. It's still limited. People are still going to want it. So I ended up starting off by running ads in. I did the press release and got a bit of nibbles from the press release. Well, that came from I ran an ad started running ads in MX. Okay. The MX newspaper had just launched. They haven't got their pricing right, and I started doing because I'd learned all the direct mail stuff. So I did this little advertorial. It looked just like an editorial piece saying Melbourne man sells the MCG for $24.95. Ran it for about 2 or 3 weeks. Yep. Then someone in the Herald Sun picked that article up, called, wanted the full story, and then they did a big piece and then got the photos out the front of the MCG. And then once it went in the Herald Sun, that's when it got picked up by the Today Show, and then it kind of flowed onto Nova Radio, and then got a few other bits and pieces after that. So it was kind of that chain reaction, but I almost started the fire myself by running these ads and paying to run the ads.
Do you have still copies of those?
Yeah.
We should put them in the show notes because obviously on our site there's all the stuff I did in my media. But really cool to see your media as well and put it on there. So we'll have to get it off you and check out the show notes, guys, because we'll link up to the some PDFs and JPEGs and stuff of what you guys did. Yeah.
So it I think we've spoken about it a couple of times. I think the media must have got confused between you and I because same age pretty much, same sort of entrepreneurial endeavours and ideas and things like that. So they, I picked it up as well. At the time, when I look back now, I think I learned a couple of really important lessons from it. One, when you've got a good idea, you've got to act on it quick because there's a very good chance that someone either in the same suburb or on the other side of the world is having the same idea that you are. Mm-hmm. So you've got to start implementing straight away. And also the idea of, I suppose, making lemons from lemonade or lemonade from lemons. Lemons from lemonade. Lemonade from lemons. There we go. And you just still roll with it. I mean, stuff's always going to pop up, and it's only added to the story. From there, like you said, a few years later we caught up, but we've done multiple different programs together. You know, I'm renting out of the office where you guys are, so we're at the same place.
Our wives think we're the same person and have dinner and just freak out that we do exactly the same things. It's
yeah. Living along the bay here as well in Melbourne, like very, very similar. So, and from a business point of view, it would have been easy to go, he is now officially my arch nemesis. Yeah. And I think really there's not any point where you can't cooperate with whoever you think your biggest competition is. So there are a few things that came up from that.
Yeah. How'd you go? Because obviously you primarily sold the certificates with timber pieces as opposed to the frames, which is sort of my primary focus. Is that a fair...
Yeah. I started off doing the certificates where we chopped it up into little slithers and then stuck it to certificate paper that I got from Officeworks.
Yep.
Got some photos from what was his name? Peter. There's a photographer who'd taken this panoramic photo prior to the demolition, and then like a history. Sold it for $24.95. Probably it cost me, I don't know, about $6 or something like that, or a bit less to put together, and that included shipping as well. So the markup was pretty good. Probably the biggest sale that worked for us, I didn't even get that much from being on the Today Show or anything like that, relatively speaking, was through wishlist.com.au, which it was just at the start of the days when it was bubbling up, almost like those deal of the day type websites. And
Spreets and the Scoopons and the Groupons and things like that. But like
prior to that. And then they were shipping or sending out all of their orders through fax. So one day when they mailed their list, they must have had a huge database. I literally had the phone ring for like 24 hours straight, because each time the phone would ring, it would be one order, and then they would fax the order through. So the fax machine connected.
So it was Wishlist were faxing you the orders. So someone would go to wishlist.com to buy a gift or a present, kind of like they were like a online shopping mall, just hold products. They would then obviously take the money from the wish list, from the client, fax you to say this is someone's ordered, this is what they want to have delivered, and then like pay you on a monthly basis or something. Yep.
And then we had, for no joke, 24 hours straight, the fax machine just ring, fax would come through, ring. It was probably one of the most exciting things I remember. It was just like, this is out of control.
If only iPhones were around these days, it'd be a really cool video to watch.
I should have. I've still got a few photos of us sitting on the floor as we made them up. You know, I started getting a bit of a production line going and had Mum and a few friends, and we'd kind of build them up. I was living in a 2-bedroom flat with my mum in on Taronga Street in Glen Iris, and there was a framer round the corner. So we started doing those orders, and then I still had the carpet, thinking, what am I going to do with the carpet? And I did some of the frames, but I did real limited numbers, thinking, okay, well, I've got a limited amount, so let's really make it clear that, you know, there's only a couple of hundred of them, and then sold those for, I think they were about $700. And that
how did you market those?
Did it a few different ways. Most of them was selling, upselling to the people who purchased the $24.95. So I did like a follow-up marketing campaign to them.
So was that, so obviously, so they go to Wishlist, they buy off Wishlist or off Today Show here and there. And then when you actually sent them the certificate, did you have an upsell letter in there, or was it a separate mailing later?
Towards the end, when I got smarter, it was included in. But there was a period, like the first batch, we mailed out afterwards. So I sent the first lot out and then sent a follow-up.
These are the people to...
I think I did it, I was around an event. It was like either Father's Day or Christmas Day that I then did the follow-up mailing through to that first batch, and then I started sliding little things in. But we even did stuff like, I had a couple of friends dress them up in like little tight tops, and they went down.
So male friends or female friends?
Yeah, female friends, down to and sent them down to the MCG at the end of a game and started handing out flyers.
Awesome.
We had about, I remember we probably handed out a good, would have been like about maybe 1,000 flyers, and we sold like maybe 3 or something out of it. I was really disappointed with the, like we were trying to do as guerrilla marketing as we could. And then obviously there were the ads that I was running in MX, which were cash flow positive. They were working all right. That was on the front end, not even on the back end.
Yeah. So on the front end, for those who don't understand the term, so it's like you pay for the ad, a couple $100. I don't know how much it was.
About $5 or $6.
So $500-$600 for an ad in MX magazine, which is a free city newspaper, which I think is still around. I don't even go into the city anymore. So, but it's like put out by one of the major newspapers here in Australia. They have this free version, it's maybe 30 pages, I think, and it's like just like the top stories of the day. It's kind of like, think Twitter in newspaper terms. The highlights of the day. They print it at like 3 o'clock, and it's just available for people on the commute. So $500 ad in that. So it's all people commuting on the trains and the trams. This is sort of, again, before iPhones and iPads. This is 10 years ago. So people were actually reading these things on the trains, whereas today everyone's head stuck in their iPad and their iPhone. So it probably wouldn't be as effective, I would think. But you were paying $500-$600 for this little ad, and it was the advertorial ad still. So it was kind of like a little story saying, not just
Melbourne Man
MCG,
sells MCG for $24.95.
and talking about what it was, how you did it, and then where they could get it. And that was obviously just making positive cash flow in terms of the revenue that was coming in after your costs, and obviously any back end sales or additional profit. It wasn't actually you weren't doing it to sort of help cash flow the actual big end sale, which is pretty cool.
And then we started trying to do everything because we had a whole lot of this wood. So started then, went back to my old school, Melbourne High School, and tried to do a JV with them where we put together some old frames as a fundraiser, and then they sent it through to the old boys. Approach.
How did that work?
Again, handful. I think all up. It was a lot of work. I mean, people look at these things and then think, that was a $1 million idea that didn't require any work, and it's just all in the idea. Yeah, there was a lot of execution in it. So we sold a good handful through there. Then we also started I tried to go through a couple of charity angles. Didn't quite stick as well. And then what else did we do? We did approach some of the memorabilia shops as well. There was a couple on Swan Street and things like that. And they took a couple on consignment, but they'd only take the big frames, not the 24.
And the economics for those people, I struggle with that as well, going to some of the memorabilia shops, and some of the bigger ones, I was trying to go to the chains and people who do the TV. Obviously, if you're in Australia during the cricket over summer, they'd pump a lot of memorabilia around and available. So I was trying to get in with them because obviously it's a perfect fit with cricket. But I soon learned that the economics for these guys is ridiculous in terms of they'd sell a quote-unquote limited edition, poster signed by Shane Warne, who's like the Michael Jordan of cricket, for like $1,000, but the whole thing would cost them less than $50 to produce because the poster was just printed. They just did a print run of 100. That's how they manufactured this limited edition. Shane signed a whole bunch of them, with a cigarette in one hand and a beer in the other. And then they pumped them out. And when I'm trying to turn around and say, well, look, I want to sell these frames for $700 because I'm not trying to rip people off. I want to have it at a price point that, everyone can own a piece of the G.
And it's genuine memorabilia.
Exactly. And, I was wanting to sort of, go 50-50 on the price point kind of stuff with them. Just the economics didn't work for these guys. So I found that really hard myself.
Yeah. I think I just tried a lot, and I've still got a lot of the wood.
Yeah.
After all that said and done, at Mum's I've got a big pile. I know you had your 10-year
anniversary a couple of years ago, which went pretty well.
Yeah, so I think from here we'll probably I'll keep it. We now use it for ways to be quite memorable to either leads or existing clients as thank yous and things like that, because it's got a little bit of a story behind it.
It's your story as well, which kind of ties. It's not just there's probably three things. Like obviously, giving thanks and corporate gifts for bribes or whatever you want to term it is really smart marketing. But obviously, it's a unique story and a very unique piece of bribery, the gift, the MCG. It's got your story, so it reinforces you as a really cutting-edge entrepreneur doing really smart stuff, which just helps tie that back in as well, which I think is really important and very smart.
Yeah, so we'll probably turn it into a seat or a bench one day for some of the remaining bits
the love seat of the new pad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Might build a separate room or something like that made out of MCG wood.
So, do you have any of the carpet left?
I've got a small bit, mainly because I'm thinking for myself I'll do something with it.
Carpet your pool room.
Yeah, there we go. A section. I'll have like a metre squared in the corner.
My uncle had a good one. He thought I should have actually carpeted the toilet and called it the members' room.
Nice.
That was his joke, which I thought was actually quite funny at the time. Yep.
Well, you can put the canned laughter in
Well,
that
exactly.
joke
There
comes
you go.
in. So,
Yeah, because one of the, talking about sort of things that didn't work, one of the things we thought would have gone gangbusters, we actually paid for some quarter-page ads in the grand final footy record.
yeah.
So the footy record is, obviously the program that is sold during the grand final, which, in Australia, the AFL grand final has, 95 to 105,000 people every year. So it's a huge crowd. And then the actual record or the program that's sold on the ground is also sold in newsagents all around the country the week leading up, because everyone wants to sit at home for whatever weird reason watching the telecast with their program on their lap. I don't know what it is, but that's, what they do. So we thought we're going to get reach, all across Australia, doing really, really well. And that cost us, not a lot, but a few $1,000s for that ad, obviously, being such a big magazine or a big program. And we think we got 2 sales, maybe 3 out of it as well. Just that that wasn't positive cash flow at all. The ROI on that was pretty poor, which was very disappointing. I think looking back on the ad was pretty crappy. I think, we could have had a lot better calls to action, direct response kind of stuff in there. It was more of a bit of a branding kind of ad saying, here, own a piece of the MCG, here's the price, call us now. There wasn't sort of any sort of story or emotion put in there, which, I guess is a learning curve thing. But yeah, there was a couple of projects we did that didn't quite work out either in terms of the promotion.
I think the testing is another lesson to come out of it as well. Like trying multiple different markets, finding what worked, and then trying to push harder on that. I kept on going back to wish list, saying, can we do something else? This was really good for you. It was really good for us. So let's just keep doing it. It kind of petered out, but they did have it on the front page for the longest time, and then it just sort of kept on churning over tickets. But then other things, we only went and did that thing at the MCG once, handing stuff out, just testing lots of different channels and then doubling down on what's working.
Speaking of that wish listing, when we did that relaunch a couple of years ago, I actually approached, I can't remember who it was at the time, but it was a Scoop on the group on one of those deal of the day people to actually do an offer through that as well, exclusive offer just for Scoop on 24 hours. I think we sold 1 out of the whole thing again, and they had a huge audience, huge reach at the time. It was when it was at the real peak, and it was the big buzz thing. These deal of the day sites now, obviously, they have petered out themselves a little bit, like unfortunately Wishlist has. But that's the kind of thing we tried to. Recently, it didn't work either. It's just that message to market match and trying to find it, because I think in hindsight, those deal of the day people, they're impulse buyers. They're people who want to sort of get a $100 steak for $40. They want to get, a $80 massage for $20. They want to get a facial. They want to get that kind of stuff.
$25 piece of the MCG, whereas you were probably selling the frames.
Exactly. We were saying the frames, $1,000 retail, get it for $500. Like, it's still a good saving, which kind of fit the Scoop-on and Groupon model. But the issue was that there was no impulse around that. It's not really something you would buy impulsively at that price point. Maybe if it was around Christmas and Father's Day and you're already looking for a gift, that ties in really well. Timing didn't really fit that. So, there wasn't sort of a story behind it. People aren't going to relate and do that impulse buy. And, obviously the thing is too, one of the big business models, which, whether it's right or wrong, we have a whole conversation about this with the Groupon and Scoop-on thing, is that a lot of people were doing those initial product sales ridiculously cheap or at a loss.
Yeah.
So unlike your wish list or your adverts in MX, which were positive cash flow from day one, a lot of people are doing those Scoop-on deals to sort of as loss leaders to actually get someone in the door at a loss to then try and get them to buy from you again and again and again. Which I think for a lot of people that never happened because they didn't have that back end transactions per client type 7 lever element happening in their business. So the Scoop-on stuff didn't work for them because they were making losses on the front end. They had no
and then
system.
it just magnified losses because they
had no system in the back end.
Hundreds of clients flooding through.
In hindsight, if I did like a certificate type thing for $25 certificates for $12, that could have fit the impulse buy scenario, and then upsold them pretty hard to the frames. In hindsight, that probably would have been a much better way to go about it. So that was kind of interesting lesson to learn.
And the other things, I suppose, the way that you leveraged off it moving beyond, well after the event, the writing of the book worked really well.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I really interwove it into a lot of presentations that I did, recording of separate videos and having them strategically on the site, all for positioning and really kind of building up building up the story of how you're working with someone who's got great ideas and acts on them and implements. But I think you kind of leveraged off it even more with the book and things like that.
That was a really beneficial thing for me. Was that the book deal was huge to actually get that, that third-party endorsement and credibility and stuff like that was really cool to actually then sort of be able to use that as a much stronger platform to go on and tell other stories and do other things. So that was pretty cool.
I think kind of spotting those ideas, I think they're really key now for telling the story. The other one that I've had just recently was the life-size Lego car powered by air.
We've got to tell this story because I love this. So it's nothing to do with the MCG, but it's a really, really cool story.
Yeah, and I look across the career, I've probably had the MCG story and this Lego story that fit into that same sort of bracket. And I love the idea of being a part of these types of projects because they're the stories that get spread. So there's a kid in Romania who was trying to get in touch with a venture capitalist to help fund him build a spaceship. Yep. So he started reaching out to hundreds of people to try and get on their radar, and no one was really responding. But he happened to reach out to a guy based here in Melbourne, Steve Sammartino, and basically sent him a Skype message just saying, "Hi, I'm a Romanian. I'm looking to build a spaceship." That was his message. So Steve accepts it.
So spammy.
I know.
So spammy.
Kid from Romania.
Wants to build a spaceship.
So
please send $2,000 to my random bank account and I will send you photos from the moon.
And, that's right. And Steve did, effectively. Yeah. He accepted him, and then they thought, well, let's start with something smaller first, and they built a little Lego spaceship and strapped some helium balloons to it, a GoPro, sent it up into space, recovered the footage when it came down, and now there's a video on YouTube of this little Lego spaceship, and you can see the curvature of the Earth. So that was step one. So basically, Steve sent him a cup. Got a good attention for Lego. Added up over all the videos that are posted on YouTube, well over a million views, and kind of only cost a couple of $1,000s. So it's doing these crazy marketing ideas. Now, they didn't tie it back to anything commercial. And since then, this kid is he's under 20. He's got a pilot's license because over in Romania, you can get free flying license up until you're 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's got his pilot's license. He's an engineer, so he has built his own, because to build a jet engine is very expensive. So he built his own and then strapped it to the top of a bike. So there's a video on YouTube of a jet engine powered push bike that he drives around on. It's pretty funny. And then his latest one was, again, he's been keeping in contact with Steve, because the whole idea is this Romanian Raul wants to raise enough cash to build this spaceship.
So a spaceship out of Lego or just a spaceship?
He wants to build a spaceship, and he's designed all of it, not out of Lego. He's designed all of the materials that are required and everything like that.
Just because he wants to build a spaceship? Or is
so he can go into space.
Okay.
Of course.
Fair enough.
And so he has designed it, spec'd it all out, and thinks, he's got as much plans as he needs to actually get moving on it. But to build a spaceship's very expensive. Yeah. So he was having trouble raising the money, just reaching out to these venture capitalists, got in touch with Steve, and they've okay, well, let's level up. Let's just imagine that if that's the end game plan, let's do 2 or 3 deals in between to get you on the radar of some people who can make this happen.
Show you can actually execute stuff and you can perform and have some runs on the board.
Yeah, so the next one that they decided was to build a life-size Lego car that was powered by compressed air. So it was built completely of Lego except for the main weight-bearing struts, I think they call it, and the wheels. Yep. But other than that, everything else was made of Lego. The engine was fully made of Lego. So he...
I get the frame of the car being made of Lego. I think people can picture that, and I'm far from an engineer. But the actual engine being made of Lego just sounds completely bizarre to me. In terms of how does the drive shaft and the compressor and blah, blah, blah.
270 pistons, and there's Lego, for some of their advanced Lego pieces, have these little tubes. So the compressed air gets pushed through all of these little tubes, and then these little tiny pistons go up and down on little pieces of Lego. It's impressive to watch. And they worked on it for 18 months, and they needed to fund it, and Steve had this idea of, hey, I want to show that in a connected world we can help fund a kid in Romania. When all of these car companies are going bankrupt, we can fund a kid in Romania to build a Lego car powered by air. So he ended up posting something on Twitter, and it effectively, he had this little prospectus that he sent out, and it said for advanced humans only, and he sent it out. He wanted 40 people to throw in $500 each to raise some money to help fund this little expedition. So the thing that he tweeted out was effectively saying, give me $500, I can only tell you a little bit about what I have planned. Chances are you'll never see your money again, and it'll probably fail.
So just a spam user Skype message originally from Romania. Okay, cool.
So I sent him $500 and watched over the course of 12 months. They'd already been doing it. All up was about 24 months or 18 months or thereabouts. But I kind of joined in for that 12-month period as we were sending things over to him, and he was sending little updates as he was travelling and sending photos. And it was getting quite exciting near the end because we shipped him over from Romania, this full-size Lego car.
So you built the car in Romania and then shipped it over here by boat or by plane?
By boat. So they got a big container, popped it in there, tried to make it all safe, but on the transit it actually got pretty banged up.
Yeah.
So when he got here, they had to rebuild quite a lot of it. And the Romanian Raul said, look, I've built it once before, I can build it again, which was kind of cool. And he, out in Werribee of all places, in someone's shed, you wouldn't be able to tell it from the shed next door. He just spent 3 weeks rebuilding this thing. I went around, I actually built all the side fenders because they got broken in the ship. So I went around and rebuilt that.
So you can say you helped make this Lego car. Not just fund it, but actually help make it.
I officially helped build it. And then...
So is the Lego stuck together with glue, or is it just like normal, like just Lego?
Parts of it were. So around the engine and things where there's a lot of movement, but then, the doors and
just
things like
Lego
that.
Stuck together.
Yeah, just stuck together. And then... got the car all finished. Unfortunately, the cash was sort of starting to run out. The costs blew out significantly for Steve, and he had to start putting his own cash in. And there was debates as to whether or not we kind of sell out and get a corporate sponsor or something like that. I mean, the final Lego bill, I don't even know if we're supposed to say or not, the final Lego bill was significant because Lego towards the end started sending it out with 30-day invoice. At the start, they wanted payment up front, but then kind of a bit of trust was built up, and then they started sending it.
Surprisingly, Lego didn't actually at least, not corporate sponsor it, but sort of go, here's a Lego piece. It's a good story for Lego. Not necessarily fund it from a corporate perspective, brand it Lego, brought to you by Lego kind of stuff, but at least go, here's the piece of the plastic.
Well, they basically have company policy that if they do that, they'll open the floodgates. So they've decided not to publicly do it, but I think I can say, I don't even know if I can, but towards the end they wrote off a significant amount to make it happen. But the timing was great for them. We launched it just before Christmas, 2013, that Christmas, and it was within sort of a week and a half from Christmas, and it just blew up. Within the first few days, it was well over a couple of million views.
You guys did a video through your Melbourne Video Productions website and business?
So we got up early, went out to Werribee. Obviously, you're not supposed to drive it on the road, but we took it out onto a little side street. Melbourne Video Production, Adrian, who's Tropfest finalist, came along, actually did a lot of the footage for it, and we filmed it actually driving. So under stress testing and things like that, it's tested to go up to about 20 kilometres per hour. It was a bit slower than that on the day, but I think really what the amazing thing is not how fast it travelled, but rather the car actually moved and travelled powered by compressed air, and it was full size. That just an engineering feat. So there were a group of us, all of the people who put in, or not, a good number of them arrived on the day, and we recorded it, turned it into a video, posted it on YouTube, and the media attention went absolutely crazy. More than the MCG story. It got picked up by over 150 media outlets
across the globe.
It was on CNN, Fox, all in the States. Big news channels picked it all up, published, Mashable, Wired, all of them picked it up and started posting their little stories and versions and things like that. And the whole idea behind it, why he's doing this, obviously, is to get enough attention. I think in less than 30 days, it was over 4 million views, and it was a global phenomenon. It was great to be a part of. It was great to look at the analytics behind. It was great to watch the whole orchestration of the way that we did it. I mean, that might be a podcast in itself. We strategically picked people who we were going to seed the video with first to help them share it out. We had a few different ideas on people that whoever threw in, if we had connections, we were tapping them on their shoulders. We pre-recorded podcasts, all these things to get the message in the right places so it could be shared with no real commercial intent, really. The whole purpose behind this was just to get some attention about Raul and what he can do. And his next project that he's worked on, he's already got it all specced up, and he wants to do some crowdfunding to create a new type of 3D printing technology. He believes that 3D printing at the moment is using, antiquated methods, melting plastic and dripping it out. He believes it can be done with, breaking apart elements and all this. He told me one day, I took him out, we actually went to go see Gravity 3D, because he's a bit of a space nut, so I took him to IMAX, and he was telling me about this thing afterwards, and well over my head. But he wants to do that to raise enough capital. Now that he's got some attention from this, he'll move into raising some capital to do the 3D printing venture, which he believes will fund the spaceship. Because he thinks it's the next billion-dollar industry just waiting to happen. The technology that he's got, he feels is groundbreaking enough that it'll have a significant impact, and then obviously license or sell it, then get his money, build a spacecraft, and then go into space. So it's
awesome.
Pretty amazing, the whole story behind it. But being involved in those types of projects, now it's got me hungry again to spot those things. And, the next time a crazy Romanian sends me a Skype message and says, send me $2,000, drop it into my PayPal account, I might actually say
so
yes.
what's your Skype address? We'll let everyone on the podcast start spamming you with some crazy offers.
So
awesome, man. That is really, really cool. Obviously, the MCG story and sort of how that relates to us is really interesting. But I think that whole Lego stuff just was because I got sent a message from Steve as well saying, do you want to jump on board? And at that time I was like, I didn't see the vision and passed on it in hindsight with regret. But like all of us, we've all got pretty regrets and stuff we've missed. But I reckon it was very smart of you to jump on board with that, because it's a very, very cool story. And I think we need to work out a way to actually get the marketing story told a lot more. Because I think the story about the concept and what was actually achieved from an engineering perspective has kind of already been told through CNN and all the media you guys got. But I would love to work out a way that we can actually tell the story a lot more of actually how you market it in terms of like how it was strategically positioned to get that sort of exposure and put together, and how the video was done and stuff like that. So I have to chat to a few people and see how I can make that happen.
We talked about, and I mean, this can just spawn the idea. We were going to look at running a marketing workshop in at the MCG at some point, where maybe we could break down and tell exactly what we did to market the MCG and
the
Lego and things like that, and perhaps do a one-day event or something like that.
Fun. Awesome, man. Well, thank you for your time. Good to finally have you on the show. We've done so many projects together that I'm sure long-term listeners have heard us talk about with the outsourcing program and workshops we've done and stuff like that. So it's good to get you on the show and share the MCG story of how two mortal enemies, two hard competitors came together and became good friends and started doing JVs together. So thank you very much, buddy.
No, pleasure. Thanks for having us.
So that was a complete surprise to me, where Dave just went off talking about that guy with the spaceship and all the rest of the stuff, but I had no idea that he'd been involved in that Lego car project. It was something that popped up on my radar, completely independent of everything that we do, all the people we know. It just popped up on one of my major international news site feeds. And I thought, hey, that's a really cool project. But I didn't watch all the way to the end of the video. And I certainly didn't see Dave's names in the title, which is there. And when I watched it again, after listening to that interview, you can see him in the background in the video quite clearly. There's Dave. And I was like, wow, like, this guy's everywhere.
Smiling assassin. Yeah, he gets his hand in some really cool pies, which is awesome.
But he literally underlined it, and you can't overemphasize what an excellent example of the power of taking action that was. I can just imagine, I know Dave a little bit, but I can just imagine his face after he'd had the fantastic idea, taken the action to get the piece of, get the stuff, only to find that you'd got there and done the same thing, but done your press release ahead of him and got your adverts out. He must have been absolutely devastated.
Well, I still remember that, when I was at the warehouse looking at all the carpet, and we might even throw some photos up on the blog that I found earlier today from the warehouse. I took photos at the warehouse and we found a couple, so we might throw that up on the blog post as well at PreneurMarketing.com. But I remember the actual guy at the wrecking company saying to me that someone else had recently bought some of the carpet and was going to do some pieces of memorabilia with them. And instantly right there, I went, okay, I'll buy all the carpet. Just because I knew someone else had bought some of it, they'd come back later and get the rest. So I bought everything that was available right then and there without question. So, I kind of knew about Dave before I even knew Dave, which was really interesting.
But it's also interesting, though, it's something that we've talked about before, and other people talk about it. You started out and you were quite literally arch enemies. You were trying to achieve the same thing in the same space with the same product. I mean, it was like, you were both going in exactly the same direction. I mean, I know that the way you presented it and the way you actually actioned it was, as you say, a step up from what Dave was doing. But, you were out and out competitors, and now, you're best buds, you work on stuff together, he's working in your office. It just shows you that whatever you perceive right now doesn't mean that's the way it's always got to be. There's always an opportunity to work with people who you might currently see as a competitor.
Absolutely. Our respective wives think they both married the same person, because it's quite funny. We are so alike in so many ways, but it's very cool. So, Dave's awesome.
He definitely shaves more than you, though.
That is true. That is very true. So, moving on from the episode and the conversation with Dave, obviously we have our regular contests here for the Preneur community, whether you are a reader of the blog or a listener to the podcast. And our contest for this week, and we're going to start making a weekly contest, and it's going to primarily be, unless something else pops up and we change on a weekly basis, but every week we're going to start giving away a personally signed book from me to the community member who leaves the best comment on the blog. So whether it's a comment about this particular episode on the show notes at PreneurMarketing.com, or maybe it's a feedback on a guarantee template you've used that's worked really, really well, or any other previous essay. It doesn't have to be an essay published this week. It can be any post of any time. As long as you comment it within the next 7 days, we'll pick the comment of the week and send a personally signed copy of How to Turn Your $1 Million Idea into Reality, which was my first book, to you, no matter where you are in the world, completely free. So, engage with us. Come back and sort of, head over to the site, leave a comment, tell us what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, what you like about a post, how you've implemented something we've spoken about, whatever it might be. Leave a comment and you'll have a fairly good chance of winning a personally signed book.
Excellent. And it is a great book. There's a bit of the background story to the MCG in there as well.
Absolutely. That's sort of the primer of the book deal actually was my MCG project. So it's all kind of tied in together.
It's all tied in nicely with a little bow, as you like to do with this episode.
Very true. And speaking of books, we didn't mention it before the cut to the conversation with Dave, but if you are interested in checking out Hooked, the book I mentioned at the start of the show, or any other great business book, audibletrial.com/PreneurCast. audibletrial.com/PreneurCast. You can go there and sign up to Audible as a trial, and they will give you, in exchange of being a listener to PreneurCast, one free audiobook download. So it can be Hooked, as I said. It can be any number of books we mentioned on the show here. But if you haven't tried that service out, I really highly recommend you head over to audibletrial.com/PreneurCast and download a free audiobook on us and Audible.
Indeed. And with that, I think we can wrap up the show. What are we doing next time, Pete?
So next episode, we're going to go back into the 7 levers, and we're going to look at some high-level points about increasing your items per sale. Because obviously, as we talk about quite regularly in the show and on the blog, the 7 Levers of Business framework is a fantastic framework to keep you focused and help you regularly double the profit of your business. And one of the ways to do that is by increasing the items per sale that you sell. And as you go through and cycle through the 7 levers, all you're trying to do is increase each lever by just 10%. So next episode, we're going to talk about a number of different ways you can consider increasing your items per sale by 10% and hitting that 7 levers goal.
Excellent. Well, folks, see you all next time.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gocher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at www.PreneurMarketing.com or drop them a line via PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com.